hard things require potential failure, and your brain sees failure as danger. So what does this mean for you? Your brain would rather repeat what's familiar than push into something new, even if the familiar thing, like staying stuck, under-earning, procrastinating, feeling crappy about yourself, even if it's that, it believes that those things are actually worse than you succeeding, than you having positivity and happiness. What if I told you that success isn't always just about talent or intelligence, but it's about the ability for you to do hard things? Look, I'm bringing some tough love today, my friends, but straight from my heart, know that I love you. Here's the truth. The people who make it to the top 10% in life and business and career and entrepreneurship and joy, they aren't always just the smartest or the most capable. They're the ones who have built the muscle of doing hard things over and over again. And today, I'm giving you the neuroscience-backed roadmap to develop this skill. This isn't just about pushing through or grinding harder. Yes, it's about grit, but these other words, they're outdated. They are bro-boss nonsense. Instead, we're going deep into the psychology of why your brain resists hard things. Spoiler alert, it's not your fault. We're going to get into the 5 phases of hard and why most people quit at phase 3. We're going to talk about how to rewire your brain to make hard things feel easier. Yeah, easier. And a step-by-step process to develop unshakable mental resilience. So if you've ever wondered why some people succeed and others don't, why you struggle with follow-through, or why your motivation sometimes crashes at the absolute worst possible moment, then this episode is for you. Let's go. I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go. Most people think they fail at hard things because they lack discipline or motivation. That is 100% false. What's the truth? The truth is that your brain was never designed for success. It was designed for survival. Think of the brain as an energy-efficient machine. Its main job is to keep you alive while using the absolute least amount of energy possible. So when something feels difficult, whether it's launching a business, speaking up in a meeting, even training for a marathon, your brain immediately resists. Now, let's break this down with some research-backed evidence and some simple translations. But before we get started, I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you about something that is super important: your mental health and well-being. Look, life can be overwhelming, and sometimes we all need a little extra support to navigate those ups and downs. And that is why I'm super excited to talk to you about BetterHelp. That's HELP. BetterHelp is sponsoring some of our episodes this spring, and they are the world's largest online therapy platform. If you want online convenient therapy, this is the way to go. And right now, you can grab 10% off your first month of therapy by just going to my affiliate link, and that is betterhelp.com/art of. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/art of. ARTOF. Now, let's get back to the 5 phases of breaking down what hard stuff really means. All right, let's kick this off with just a little bit of science and a little bit of research, just so we can lay some foundations on how to do this stuff. So here's a quote. Your brain's primary job isn't to make you successful. It's to keep you alive with the least amount of effort possible. That comes from Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, who is a Harvard neuroscientist. What is she talking about? Your brain is wired to avoid anything that feels uncertain, difficult, or energy draining, because all of those things equate for your survival brain to death. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is obviously to binge watch Netflix than to write that business proposal. Often we beat ourselves up over the head because of, quote, procrastination, end quote. But this isn't actually laziness. If you're aware of what's happening, if you understand your brain's default, because this is just biology, that's it. Your brain's survival system is always scanning for threats. And this is subconscious. You don't know what's happening. And when hard things come up, and we're going to get into this, but hard things are entirely subjective. What is hard for somebody is not hard for somebody else, depending on where they are in their lives, what is their level of training in the thing, what is their experience. So for you and your level of subjective hard things, when those things come up, they feel like a threat to your brain because, quote unquote, hard things require uncertainty and your brain hates the unknown. They require energy and your brain loves conserving energy. Hard things require potential failure and your brain sees failure as danger. So what does this mean for you? Your brain would rather repeat what's familiar than push into something new. Even if the familiar thing, like staying stuck, under-earning, procrastinating, feeling crappy about yourself, even if it's that, it believes that those things are actually worse than you succeeding, than you having positivity and happiness. So how do we kind of hack our way out of this cycle? Instead of fighting your brain, you've got to trick it. You have to trick your survival mechanism that is always online and always scanning for threat and always telling you default stuff that's not true. You have to trick it into seeing hard things. Again, subjective. You get to decide what is and is not hard for you. Hard things as safe, as familiar, as doable, as necessary. We start, for example, here's just a couple of things, ridiculously small. So you have something hard you're working on and you are absolutely struggling against your survival mechanism to get off the couch and turn Netflix off. Like, again, not necessarily lazy, totally biology. So you say you'll work on something for 5 minutes instead of, I've got to finish this whole thing. And then you procrastinate, wait till the last minute, and then you don't get sleep. And then you totally bomb the presentation. Give it 5 minutes and go back to your show. You can do that. We need to make it feel normal. So you need to surround yourself with people who do hard things daily. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you doing? Are you studying? Are you investing in your brain? Because that is the greatest investment you can make. Are you listening to every possible podcast under the sun that is helping you learn? This is what changes your brain to see things more normally than risky or dangerous. Here's another quote. Most people's brains default to a fixed mindset, avoiding anything that feels like a risk of failure. That comes from Dr. Carol Dweck, who is a psychologist at Stanford. She's the author of Mindset. Now, what is she talking about? Your brain naturally categorizes you as either good or bad. You have mindset that you may not even know you have, good or bad. You're good at something or you're bad at something, and you believe that you're good or bad at something instead of understanding that you can improve something with effort, that you can learn how to do something that you have told yourself your whole life you can't do. Another example with finance. Society has told women their entire lives that women are bad with money. It's everywhere. Women have been immersed in this, not only since the moment we had taken our very first breath, but generations have been immersed with the idea that women are not good with money, even though we have so much evidence against that. This is an idea that may very well be running in your brain. You may not be wanting to start a business or venture out on your own or take some risks because you have been convinced you're not good with money. And that's not true. That is a lie that has been on loop in your brain. You can change that at any time, but that is what mindset and fixed mindset is all about. So instead of believing that you're bad at something, you have to trick your brain by telling yourself that you can improve whatever the thing is with effort. So here's another example of a fixed mindset. I'm bad at public speaking. Well, let's try a growth mindset. Let's reframe that thought once we've caught it, right? Those are those steps. You catch the thought, you reframe the thought. So the reframe would be, I can improve my speaking skills with practice by reading a book on it, by taking a course, by signing up for what is that thing, Toastmasters or whatever. Like, these are skills. Most everything is a skill that you can learn. And why does any of this matter? When your brain labels something as quote unquote hard, it often assumes that you're just not capable of doing it. And that is just awful of your brain to constantly tell you that you're not good at stuff, especially when maybe you've never tried it. Maybe you've never put effort into it. Maybe you've never taken a class on it. I mean, I've told myself my whole life I'm a horrible cook, but you know what? Every time I follow a recipe, I make pretty darn good food. Do I like it? The cooking? Sometimes, it's not the thing I'm drawn to, but I'm not a terrible cook. My entire life, I've been raised with my maternal mom's line, maternal mom, maternal grandmother, that they know we're cooking when the smoke detector goes off. Yeah, it goes back at least 4 generations. That's where I come from. Okay. Is that true? No, because when I follow a recipe, and often I can make stuff up and it's not bad. Do I want to do it all the time? No, it's not, my life's calling, but it's not true that I'm cooking every time the smoke detector goes off. That is a fable that has been passed down in my family for generations. What has it taught me? It's taught me for years that I'm a terrible cook, but I'm not. I don't have to be. If I wanted to be a great cook, I just go take a class. I develop the skill and I deal with something hard and challenge, and I learn how to trick my brain into understanding that I can do something. Your brain often assumes that you're not capable of doing it. And that's just a terrible thing. One of the easiest tricks is to think about how many times you tell something to yourself a day or a week. And then imagine calling your best friend that many times and telling them how terrible they are at something. I mean, how many times do you tell yourself you're terrible at something all day? Imagine every time your brain says that to you, you've called your best friend and told that to them in the same ugly tone that you use on yourself or that your brain is using on you, which you can change. It's not okay. And that's just a simple fix, right? Think about, would you call your best friend 50 times a day and tell them they're a horrible cook and not to bother? Of course not. So why do you do it to yourself? And better yet, why do you let your brain do it to you? Because it's doing it all day. So you need to catch those thoughts. You need to become aware and then catch them and reframe them. This is why so many women never negotiate for higher salaries. They never leave awful jobs to go get better paying jobs with a better environment. They never try to compete for leadership roles often. That's why we don't see that many women in leadership or CEOs. They rarely launch businesses or become entrepreneurs or go out there and strike it out and leave that crappy job with that terrible paycheck. This is why we don't go after, because of risk. We assume that we're just not good at it, not because we have evidence. We've just never tried because we've been told we're not good at it. It sounds a little bananas because you don't know if you're good at something until you try. And when you try the first several times at anything, you're going to be terrible at it most of the time. It is clearly going to take a lot of practice to get better at something. So we're going to get into that. And how do you stop this? You reframe. You reframe hard as training. Instead of, I suck at this, you need to ask yourself, what evidence do you have that you suck at it? Have you actually put effort into it? So you reframe it and you say, I'm in training for this. It's going to suck in the beginning, but once I put effort into it, I can develop a skill and get better. And then it's a matter of how better you want to get. How much effort do you want to put into something to get better at it? You need to look at your past wins. You've done hard things before. Your brain needs proof that effort leads to improvement, not danger. Here's another quote. Dopamine isn't just a reward system. It's a motivational regulator that drops when your brain predicts difficulty. Now, that is from one of our favorite podcasters, Dr. Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist from Stanford. What is he talking about? Your brain doesn't just use dopamine to reward success. Now, remember, dopamine is that neuromodulator, neurotransmitter that is like the feel-good drug that is naturally released in your brain. It uses it to predict how much effort something will take. If your brain believes something will be difficult, it drops dopamine beforehand in anticipation before you even start. Here's an example. You set a big goal that you are going to launch a business. At first, you feel super motivated, right? Because the dopamine has dropped and you've got that, high level of the feel-good neurotransmitter coursing through your body. But the moment you hit your first obstacle, dopamine crashes. Your brain sees it as a lost cause because your brain does not want you to do things that it believes are risky. The moment you hit failure, the dopamine level drops and you give up because it no longer feels good. But that's just because the dopamine stopped rushing for a hot minute because you hit your first roadblock. You lose this motivation because you're assuming something's wrong, that you can't do it. Your brain doesn't want you to try. You've already failed once. Too bad. So sad. And you quit. If you expect these quick wins, dopamine stays high. But if you expect failure, dopamine crashes and you feel unmotivated. So how do we get around this one? You need to celebrate these micro wins, these little bits of evidence that you can prove to your brain that if you're using your thinking brain and you are putting effort into learning new things, you will, after you suck at it originally, you will get better. And you've done hard things before. What are those micro wins? Your brain needs evidence that effort equals progress, that effort equals building a skill eventually. And you need to lower your expectations of what you consider to be easy or what you expect to be easy. Expect challenges so that your brain doesn't panic when they happen. Because a lot of people preach about formula, right? If we do all of the things right, then we get the cookie or the prize, or I don't know what it is we're supposed to get, but we're supposed to get something, right? People can tell you all the time that if you follow the formula, everything's going to be great. It's not true. Now, that sells books. That gets people to listen and tune in and whatever. But the minute something bad happens, all of that fades away and you are left alone and feeling like shit about yourself because you must not have done it right. And what's worse is people can easily tell you you didn't do it right. That's why it didn't work. And then their whole belief system that is based on formulas is intact because it's your fault. None of that's true. Life is 50-50. It's going to balance out in the end. That's one of the greatest things my coach taught me. Life is 50-50 and 50% of it sucks and 50% of it is great. And it's different for everybody. It's another one of those subjective things. So when you expect 50% of your life to be a challenge on some level, then your brain will not panic when these things happen because you are training it to expect difficulty. Before we get any deeper, I really want to get into what the 5 phases of doing hard things actually are and where people quit. 90% of people quit at the same time in the same phase. And we're going to break this down. Every hard thing in our lives follows a predictable 5-phase cycle. Here are the phases. Phase 1, unawareness. You don't even know what's possible yet. Most people don't struggle because they lack talent. They struggle because they don't even see what's possible for them. Studies show that your belief in success is largely shaped by your environment. And that comes from a Harvard Business Review 2022. So phase 1 is a lack of awareness. Phase 2 is awareness. And that's the excitement. You're excited because you have no evidence against the hard thing. Those neurotransmitters are flowing simply because you have taken the step in a brand new direction you originally were entirely unaware of. The new evidence that we are building in phase 3, once things start to get difficult, where everyone quits, this is evidence of failing. Failing is new evidence that we're going to fail because we haven't put a lot of effort into something. We don't have experience. We don't have training. We haven't built the skill. So once that dopamine high crashes and we no longer feel excited because we hit roadblocks, because things have gotten difficult, and again, subjective, we begin to build evidence of things failing, that we can't do them. But again, it's like going to the gym. You're going to fail, right? We have to build the strength in the failing. The evidence is telling you it's not going to work. You need to quit. But it's in this moment that you have to dig in and begin to build evidence of resilience through every failure. You have to continue to get up and try again, instead of letting your brain, your survival mechanism, tell you to stay in the cave and not try, because trying equals death. But in the beginning, you will build evidence of failure. And that is just part of the journey, because you're going to fail. And you cannot be afraid to absolutely suck at stuff. You cannot. We have to build the evidence that we're going to fail before we get better. But most people are taking like a total baseball bat and beating themselves over the head because they've run into resistance that is going to inevitably be created by the action you're taking. You are supposed to face resistance, and your brain's going to yell at you about it, and you have to manage your brain. A lot of people don't really know what hard things are, because the minute we face some kind of resistance, we quit. Our brain has convinced us we should quit. We failed. We can't do it. We haven't followed the formula, blah, 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 blah. The formula is just going to keep you trapped in a cave. Safe. Starting a business is risk. Yeah. But what did they say? No risk, no reward. This is where you learn what hard is. And this is where you step into becoming part of the 10% who succeed. And if you haven't experienced this level of hard stuff, then we want you to know what hard stuff is. That's important in order for you to understand how to succeed, right? The hard part is figuring out what it is that you are uniquely equipped to solve problems for, and then find people that have the problem for you to solve. It may take you several tries. That's okay. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. Instead of living in regret and failure and letting your brain convince you that you should immediately quit because things got difficult, this is what my coach would call the phase of doubling down. She would say, you have to overcome the pain, the doubt. You have to dig in and work hard. This is where you learn resilience. This is where you get tough. Action not only creates resistance, it creates evidence against. So when you go from phase 2 of excitement into action, resistance will follow. And then the things that your brain will lean into immediately is doubt, is telling you you can't do it. Why did you even bother? Why did you try? You suck at this. Beat yourself up. Instead, you should welcome the difficulty. Expect it. Know that it's coming 50-50, right? Because you have every excuse to quit when things get hard. I mean, who's going to give you a hard time? Your brain is wired to run away from what it perceives as danger, which is subjective, and you can change that. Your brain is wired for pleasure, for happiness. Your brain is wired to seek comfort and to repel discomfort. But if you don't quit, you get to move with the 10% into phase 4. And phase 4 is either you've quit or you dig in. This is where you have data. Now you have experience. Now you have pushed through hard things that have taught you how to succeed through the hard things. The 10% have gone through phase 3 and got to the other side. And every opportunity they can, they reach back and they try to pull people through because it's hard. That is what hard is. And anybody who's criticizing, complaining, judging, commenting on social media about your new business, they're not in the top 10% because the top 10 is too busy being successful and happy. to complain about what other people are doing. So what is that secret sauce for the top 10% of successful people? They get good at doing hard things. They build evidence for themselves that they can believe in, that they can rely upon themselves to do hard things and be successful at them eventually. When you get to phase 5 of evidence, it will absolutely change your life because you will now become your own inspiration of what you can accomplish. And that's when evidence 4 starts compounding upon itself. And that's when you kind of step into your future self that you were dreaming of being in the first 4 phases. But you've got to go through the first 4. You teach yourself that you can handle hard things, that you're not going to fall apart, that you don't have to quit like 90% of the people in phase 3. You can expect phase 3 because I'm telling you about it. It's coming. The first part of dealing with hard things is actually dealing with hard things and then getting good at it. So we need to change our perspective on what hard is because it's all relative. We need to look for more hard things to overcome. Like that, you need to be looking for them. That is building your discipline. Go head first into hard things, knowing they're coming. Don't be afraid of them. Don't blame yourself. Don't use it as some excuse that you have failed because you have not. You're just building evidence against until you get to the stage where you can build evidence for. That's why you need to kickstart your thinking brain. That's why you need to engage in things like, big questions, challenging, asking. That moves your brain to a place of creativity because once you begin to expect, anticipate, look for hard things, then you will have the skills to face them when they inevitably knock you sideways, when you get sideswiped by one. So your 5 phases are unawareness, then awareness, as in you've created a new belief and you are so excited about it that you're willing to try. However, phase 3 is that action creates in and of itself resistance, right? I mean, if you're moving forward, all of a sudden you're pushing through atmosphere or wind. Your action by in and of itself creates resistance. And that resistance is basically evidence against. And so you're stacking a whole pile of little pieces of paper of evidence against in your evidence folder. But as you do that, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to success. There's some research from Angela Duckworth's grit study, who's from the University of Pennsylvania. And she shows that grit, not talent, is the number 1 predictor of success. Your brain starts adapting. What felt impossible now feels manageable. Here's an example. The first time you do public speaking or a sales call, cold call, or major negotiations, it's terrifying. But by the time you get to the 100th time, it's a routine. That's what phase 5 is. It's a mastery of becoming good at doing hard things. That Glennon Doyle, you can do hard things. Yeah, you can master doing hard things. You can create hard things success as a new normal. Success is not an event. It's not something that happens to you. It's a skill. So at this stage, hard things become part of your identity. So when something feels hard, reframe it immediately. Instead of I'm struggling, say I'm training for something bigger. I'm getting stronger. I'm practicing. This is my discipline. How you talk about effort changes how your brain experiences it. When you feel that pressure, that resistance, when you take action, that voice that's telling you to quit, that's your cue to lean into it, double down, dig in, push harder. That's how you trick your brain. And don't forget, taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. Learning mental resilience is just as hard as learning how to achieve hard things. You can always rely on therapy. Therapy should be accessible and practical for everybody, which is why I am partnering with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, who are sponsoring some of our episodes this spring because they make it easy to get the support that you need on your schedule. So if you want to grab 10% off your first month to give it a try, just go to BetterHelp, HELP.com/art of ARTOF. And you can grab that 10% there with my affiliate link. Hard things aren't punishments. You haven't failed at the formula. Hard things are invitations to rise, to get sharper, to get stronger. You cannot let being too uncomfortable keep you in the cave, afraid of risk, because your brain is in survival mode. Look, here's the truth. Growth is built in discomfort. So when you feel that pressure, that resistance, when you take action, that voice that's telling you to quit, that's your cue to lean into it, double down, dig in, push harder. I'll see you next week.